katana, or the way we say it in New York, hey, it's a katana. However way you say it, however way you describe it, they are some of the most amazing swords, the most amazing weapons in history ever made, arguably. Now, you guys know I love katana. Talk about them, I use them as best as I can, and I try to give you my opinion as far as how they're made and how they're produced, but I never really told you why. I render an opinion on certain types, certain aspects of the katana as they are. So the one thing we're going to be talking about today is going to be tsukamaki, the wrapping of the handle. If you want to see a little bit more of that, stick around. Coming up next. Most amazing thing about this particular sword, this particular art piece is pretty much what it is, can be completely taken apart. So every piece of the sword has a different craftsmanship and a different type of art form that goes into how they're making it and why they make it the way they are. Yes, katana being produced today, and they are reproductions. Some may argue the fact that these should not be called katana. The only thing that should be called katana are swords that are made out of Japan and which are also called nihanto, means swords made in Japan. There are arguments on both sides of the fence. So yes, these are reproductions of katana, but we're going to still call them katana because they're doing a really damn good job in terms of reproducing these swords today. But think about the swordsmiths that actually invented the way or paved the way for what we do with the swords today and how they kind of just invented everything as they went along. The complexity of the handle and how it's made, the wood core, the wrapping, the everything from the even the thought of using race skin to kind of keep the cordage in play, the ornaments, the fuchi, the kashira. This was all invented by them. This was all something that they kind of made up along the way. It was such an incredible feat in terms of what they did that it's still thousands of years later. We're still producing traditional katana exactly the same way. Let's pay homage to some of the master swordsmiths that kind of invented the art of making a sword for so many generations that came after it, and it's still used today, which is such an amazing thing. Masamune, 12th and 13th century. He's pretty much often considered as Japan's greatest swordsmith. Under his name, some of the finest katana in history have been made, and many of them are still historical items. Muramasa is known for his deadly swords. They are so feared that some actually say that they're actually cursed. Then there's Kotetsu, a master swordsmith around the Edo period. High prized swords, and they're known for their extreme sharpness and durability. The work that these swordsmiths have done and the inventions that they made, the fact that they're thousands of years later, we're still producing the swords, we're trying to attempt to produce the swords the same way, is an amazing thing to think about. The act of wrapping a suka, which is called tsukamaki, it's not only just a wrapping of the ito, it's also how the pieces line up with the ito, how the diamonds look, if the diamonds are even, if there's any overlaps of the fuchi, which is right here, the collar of the sword, if there's any overlap or anything that's going to kind of go into your hand or anything like that. Artistically and fit and finish has a lot to do with how these things are made and how I judge them, because it kind of just shows you the art form and how much pride and professionalism go into trying to reproduce these katana the way they were produced in Japan, in terms of these nihantos that are still found historically, how beautiful after thousands of years these things still are. So if you look here with this particular sword is a Cloudhammer sword. This sword was given to me for review from Cloudhammer. This is not their leather ito. This is a cotton wrap. They're leather, known also for their leather wraps because they have a really beautiful jacket, soft leather wrap, and it's very, very tight, very well made. Their Tsukamaki, for the most part, in Cloudhammer is very well done. If you notice here on the Kashida, you have the Ito that's kind of overlapping here, which is better than the Kashida overlapping the Ito, because then basically it's kind of just going to go into your hand as you're using it. There's a reason why these things have to be built the way they are, because if the blade of the sword is the heart, is the soul of the katana, the handle is definitely, if it's well made, is definitely the heart of the katana, because this is where your hands are. This is where you're managing that sharp, a long, elongated razor blade, and you want to make sure that it's tight Everything is even. There's nothing that's going to basically loosen up while you're using it, and you could either damage the sword, hurt yourself, or hurt somebody else. So definitely, you safety wise, this definitely has to be done in a certain way, and it should be generally very, very tight, and it should last basically during practice sessions, during cutting sessions. If you notice the diamonds on these, pretty even for the most part. Like I said, Cloudhammer does a pretty good job with their Tsukamaki in terms of also the black Makugi pegs that they put in here that kind of matches the whole aesthetic of the black race skin. And the fact that there's not, a little bit of a ledge here, there's always room for improvement with Cloudhammer, and I have told them that through the years. But for the most part, their Tsukamaki and the tightness of their Ito is very good. You can barely move it. They do a pretty good job. You can move it a little bit, but it's not to the point where it's going to be a problem. And I have used this, I have cut with it, and there hasn't been too much of a problem. A little fraying here and there, but not too much of a problem. The knot is good. Everything pretty much stays in place. So this is a pretty good Tsukamaki. Not the best. There is room for improvement, but this is what they have to offer here with this sword. As much as I absolutely love this sword, this is a Hanwei Raptor Unakubi Zukuri. It's a sloppy mess in terms of the Ito. Some call this an axe handle. I have no problem with the handle in terms of gripping it. I have no problem holding it. Just for me it works. Some people call it an axe handle and all that, but I think it works for me. But this kind of, you can see basically you can move this about a half an inch. This is also fake race skin. It's not real, but they're not advertising it any different. This is also a something called a battle wrap katate maki, which is what you're seeing here, the battle wrap, where it kind of just, you have the diamonds on the end, and then you have the straight wrap in the middle. Some people find the battle wrap a little bit more comfortable in the hands in terms of holding it, in terms of where you normally put your hands. I personally really like the battle wrap. This happens to be like a suede material. It doesn't move in the middle, but you definitely, and you see the diamonds are all kind of out of shape. But I do love the sword. The sword is fantastic. But the Fuchi, everything lines up pretty good. There's not much overlap also here on the Kashida. Not much movement. The knot is pretty good. But if we had to rate this in terms of an artistic thing, it's no bueno. It's definitely, it's not the best it could be, but that's not pretty much what they're advertising. They're advertising the sword, the blade, and the strength of the sword, the durability, and all that. And for argument's sake, I have used this many times, and that this particular sword went on tour all around the country with many different other people, and this thing didn't come apart, it didn't loosen. So whatever they did it right. It just doesn't look that pretty. This is probably the best overall fit and finish out of any sword I have personally in my humble collection. This is the Huawei Datanuki sword. You have many reviews. I'll put a link definitely in this video for this sword if you definitely want to see more in-depth detail of how well made this sword is. But the Tsukamaki on this, well, I mean, I don't even want to. I'll go into a rabbit hole if I have to talk about the shapes of the handles, because that's pretty much a whole other video. But just the tightness of the handle, the shape of the handle, it's kind of almost like an hourglass shape. It's really absolutely beautiful and so tight, and how they kind of carved out the inlays to put the race skin in. Definitely watch my video and take a look at what an expert, professional, and amazing job that Huawei does on their swords. Absolutely tight. Absolutely tight. I mean, I can't get any movement out of here. This is also some Hishigami, which is the paper they put underneath to make it a little tighter, a lot tighter rather. Ray skin is very high quality, blackened ray skin. No movement and no overlap. Perfect transitions of the Fuji, and obviously the pieces are all iron and very high quality, very polished and well made. It's just a really, really beautiful, beautiful sword. Beautiful attempt at the Tsukamaki on this. The iron fittings, there's no overlaps or gaps or anything like that going on here. You can see basically how beautiful the transitions are with the Fuji and the Ito. I mean, this is pride. This is professionalism. This is respect for the tradition of making these swords and making the Tsukamaki the way they were traditionally made as Nikantos. And this is probably one of the best you're going to find out there. And tight, absolutely comfortable. I have used this a bit, not much, no fraying, no movement. It is just really one of the best swords you can buy in the production market. And for the price range, I mean, you get amazing value. This is my definition of a very good Tsukamaki, a very good attempt at making the handle, the shape, and everything, even when you take it apart, the inlays and everything that goes along with it. This is one of the best I have. Equally as impressive is Gaijiro. This is the Takachigai. which means cross feathers. They have also very original pieces. So you can see basically the cross feather. These original pieces from Skyjiro. You won't find them anywhere but on Skyjiro swords. Besides that, also the shape of the handle. You notice when a sword is made well, you notice how the shape of the handle is done in a way where it's kind of shapes right into your hand, shapes into the grip of your hand, and it's just extremely comfortable to hold. Now, if you look here, the transitions are great. The tightness of the Ito is also extremely tight, probably even a little tighter than Huawei, but they're equally very, very well made. And look how well made the diamonds are for the most part. The transitions, the knot, the high quality of the race skin. It's just a very well made. The cross feathers. Look at the Manuki, how beautiful they are and how detailed they are. We're not going to get into the pieces themselves, but the Tsukamaki itself, in terms of how the transitions are. This is my definition of a very, very well made Tsukamaki from the Skyjiro sword. That's pretty much what you can expect from swords of this price range and also from this make. It's not entirely about price. Now, we're staying at a high price range. This is another very high price sword sent to me from a review from Zisei. Zisei also has very good, very, very tight Ito, very, very tight Tsukamaki rather. And the transitions are very good. The fittings are very good. The way everything is kind of put together. What I didn't like about this particular sword is I think the diamonds are a little too small. They could have been a little bit bigger. I mean, aesthetically, I just like a bigger diamond in terms of how they wrap, but the tightness is supreme. Very, very supreme tightness. Very nice thin handle, structured and fit. The palm fits it extremely well, and nice transitions also on the fuchi and the knot and everything like that. And this is, considered a very high price sword from Zisei, and you would expect them to have very, very tight Ito. But that doesn't mean that price has all to do with it, which you're going to see towards the end of this video. Fits in the hand, no movement or anything like that. Great for practicing, great for cutting. Never going to have a problem with the construction made like this. Now we're going to go into more budget type of swords. Swords in the sub $200 range or between $200 and $300. So prime example, this is a Romance of Men katana. This is a $155 spring steel sword. You notice how the fittings, the quality of the fittings is pretty good. Everything looks nice. Everything is tight. I cut with it. It did a great job. But look at the Tsukamaki on this. $155 sword. Obviously, I mean, it is real race skin. Probably not the best quality race skin, but it is real. The diamonds are fairly even. And look at the tightness, guys. I mean, you really have to struggle to really move it about a millimeter or so. Now, again, this is a very low price sword. So price doesn't always have to do with how tight the Ito is, how good the Tsukamaki is, or how good the transitions are. It has to do with the make, the manufacturer for the most part. So you can get a cheaper quality sword at $155 from Romance of Men. This is a great freaking value. And I tout this sword a lot because I think you're getting a lot of good value for $155 in terms of the fittings. Extremely tight Ito, which is very, very good. This rivals some of the higher quality swords, but they do a really, really great job. And this is a very cheap sword. So it really does not always have to do with the price. See, I showed you the Huawei, the Zisei, the Skyjiro. Those are swords within about $1,000 price range, a little bit under, and you would expect them to be good, but you don't expect a $155 sword to have this good fit and finish. So it's a matter of just the manufacturer reputation and what type of work that they're doing. This is something that people can do themselves. It's just a very time-consuming thing to do the right way. If you're looking to just spit out swords and get things out because they're sub $200, it's not going to be this type of material, this type of craftsmanship. But when you're taking the time, even at that price range, to give you a really good handle, something very comfortable and very secure. This feels so freaking good in the hand. It's exceptional. It's a good value. Now, the one sword manufacturer that I don't think gets enough credit for the type of work they do in terms of their fit and finish. Now, overall, the sword is not perfect, but they do a very, very good sword. The Tsukamaki on Jeiku swords or Sino swords, most people know them as Jeiku, is phenomenal. Now, when we want to talk about the extreme tightness of Ito, we're talking about Evolution blades, we're talking about Citadel. I personally haven't had personal experience with them. I know from Matthew Jensen, if you follow me, you definitely follow him. I know from all the swords that he reviewed and had in his hand, and I see how tight Ito is and how well made that Tsukamaki is in the handle. I mean, it's just heavenly, beautiful. But I gotta say, guys, This Jakku sword, this is a Hero Zakuri. Look at that tea-stained, large nodule ray skin. This is also the battle wrap that I was talking about earlier. This is a leather wrap, but guys, I would need like a chisel and a hammer to move these knots. Absolutely zero movement. The tightness of the Ito of Jakku swords is pretty damn phenomenal. This sword probably is in a 400 or so price range. I've had swords that are cheaper sent for me from them. This is also Jakku. This is a very large ska or Tsuka. It's about a 13-inch handle. But look at the diamonds. Look at everything. Look at the shape. Look at the transitions. No movement. Everything is really, really nice. And again, another sword from Jakku, you cannot, I mean, I actually hurt my fingers trying to move the knots. Absolute tightness. This type of tightness you're getting from Evolution blades. It's pretty phenomenal that you're getting this type of tightness from this leather wrap. Now, I've had this for quite a while. I've cut with it. The leather hasn't moved or anything like that. It's been in great shape. So really a lot of credit to Jakku, okay, for the type of Tsuka Maki, the type of handle wrapping that they're doing on their swords is pretty damn phenomenal. So definitely a feather, tip to my cap to Jakku in terms of pretty much even just the ray scan, the T stain. I mean, this is pretty much one of my favorite fit and finish swords. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but it's definitely very well done within a $400 price range. Jakku does a really, really good job in terms of their fit and finish. They do drop the ball at times, but from whatever I've had from them so far has been pretty damn good. I don't know about the work that they're doing now, but the work that I have seen from them in the past has been very good. If you guys have shopped with Jakku of late and gotten swords, definitely put into the comment section how their work is. If it's still this really extreme tightness of the Ito and there's really good transitions, the diamonds, everything is great. But definitely a lot of credit to Jakku for delivering a tightness of the Ito and the Tsuka Maki on that you would see more on very high price swords in the thousands range. So a lot of credit to what they're offering. Lastly, Swords of Northshire. Swords of Northshire, for all intents and purposes, does a really great job in terms of their fit and finish. I mean, they're great cutting swords, of great durability. I love the saya. They share a lot of the same bin in terms of with Hanban Forge and things like that. But for the most part, the leather wrap is good. You can definitely move it a little bit, but it's still pretty tight, very serviceable, very comfortable in the hand, very good cutting sword. The ray skin is pretty good quality, that red stain. A little bit of movement in the kasha that could have been improved. So it's not perfect, but it's still, for the price range, I think this is probably also in around the $400 price range when they sent to me as a sample. It's good. I mean, a little bit gaudy on the pieces. So I'm learning that now. But Swords of Northshire, for the most part, you are expecting a very good handle wrap on most of their swords. Again, I haven't seen Swords of Northshire for a while. So if you have experience with Swords of Northshire of late, let me know what you're thinking about the swords. If your fit and finish is good, if the diamonds are even and transitions are good, if the Tsuka Maki is pretty much what it should be, and if it's going to be comfortable in your hand as you're using it. This is very comfortable, very good cutter, light and nimble. I love this sword. It comes down to the manufacturer and the reputation and how much pretty much professionalism and pride they're taking into their work. You have companies like Huawei that are doing amazing jobs, Skyjiro, Zisei, Evolution Blades, Citadel, they're top notch in terms of basically the fit finish you're getting from them. But you have a lot of surprises like Jakku, okay, that's giving you Citadel type of tightness in the Ito, which is unheard of. And then you have these, custom shops. Jakku's also a custom shop like Swords of Northshire is doing a good job. And then you have swords like Romance of Men that are giving you swords within the lower price ranges with really good fit and finish. We want good Tsuka Maki because basically we want to be able to hold it in our hand and be secure and to know that the Ito's not going to fall apart. It's going to fit, your hands are going to fit firmly. It's not going to be comfortable. There's not going to be any ledges, okay, from the pieces over the Ito, the way it's wrapped, that's going to cut into your hand, no discomfort. You want to make sure that basically if you're using this as a practitioner and you're practicing with it and sheathing and unsheathing it in and out, that nothing is going to cause you discomfort. And that's why you want a good professional Tsuka Maki, along with the fact that it's an art piece, guys. These things are art pieces and they're beautiful. And you want to have a good reproduction of what a katana is made, has been seen in history for. You definitely have to look at this video coming up next with one of the finest fit and finish swords that I have, the Huawei Dr. Newton.